Hello everyone, welcome back. You have returned to Dork's Dolls. I know you're looking at my floor right now, and that's because I'm using my phone, and there is no other way for me to have you be able to see my hands. I had no way of propping my phone or anything in a way that you can see my hands. So for now, you're going to be seeing my floor and whatever's in my hands. So I decided today that you would be able to get a little detail into Supreme Kai and what I did. It shouldn't be too hard to explain. So let me just start with the first thing that I did, which was his circle, his cranium. There were no eyes, there were no ears, and this little thing is actually a separate piece, and his nose is separate. So for just his head, I basically just crocheted a basic circle. To do a circle, you start off with a small little stitch, and you build upon it. And you go out, and then you pull it up, and it starts making a weird bowl shape. And then you start pulling it in, and you've got a circle. Now, I stuff my dolls with this. It's just some fluffy stuff. And I think it's in every teddy bear. I think it's in anything. And I stuff all my dolls with that. I recently, a few weeks ago, I made my sister a penguin. And I stuffed it with that. So that's how I made the basic circle. After that, I made his chin. Now, I was looking at the picture of the Supreme Kai, and I thought just a round head wouldn't do him justice. I wanted him to have some facial features, and I got this weird poofy thing. I liked it. I thought it was cute. I might try to make actual jaw lines later, but this is what I got. This is kind of similar to how I started the head, with a circle, and then I came out, and then what's interesting is how I got it onto him. I actually made the chin separate. It was just a weird little bowl. I put it on him by actually taking a very giant needle, like a sewing needle, and I was able to put the yarn through the hole because it was so big, and literally I sewed on his chin. And when I had a little bit of space left before I finished, I stuffed it, and I got that. His nose is very easy. I used the needle and I just kept sewing over it, and so it grew and grew and grew. It's not the best way to make a nose, but that's what I did. For his mouth, I actually used thread, like really thin sewing string, and I used an actual sewing needle, and I just kind of embroidered it on, if that's the right word. The smile, actually, I had to redo it because I made his smile too low and he looked like a numbskull. It looked like the stupidest thing in the world. I looked at the picture of Supreme Kai and I realized his mouth was a lot closer to his nose. I also had to redo his eyes. I had done his eyes and it looked worse than it is now. And so I redid his eyes, and this is what you have. So it's definitely an improvement. I'll get to the eyes in a minute. Let me go to the ears. The ears I actually did it very differently than the rest. I did a chain, and then I actually did I made a whole chain, but I can't remember how I did it. I was able to make a point in the chain. So the chain, when it was finished, was just a triangle. I had a triangle of chains, and then I actually went back and I filled in between. So I brought my needle and my crocheting, and I actually was able to go from side to side and fill it in until I had the shape I wanted. And then I used that needle and thread, and I used it and I sewed it in. The most difficult part was making the ears symmetrical. That was very difficult, and they did not come out very symmetrical. But yeah, I think it's good enough, wouldn't you? I did his hair next. His hair is actually 7 separate things. The hair was surprisingly easier than you may think. It took a long time because there's so much of it, God, but it wasn't as hard as you think. I'll use this main piece of hair right here. No, I'll use this one. It's easier for you to see. So I started out with making a chain, and I came around on itself and I came back. Then when I went around again, I didn't go all the way. I stopped, and then I went back, and then I kept doing that to where I would stop sooner and sooner, and you would get this shape. And I would do it different lengths, different widths. I looked at his picture a lot to make sure I had an appropriate type of style of hair. And I got this. Now the yarn, the way it's crocheted, it loves to curl in on itself. And I thought, I guess it looks a little more realistic that way, but his hair doesn't do that. So you have to kind of pull it out. The problem was that it would curl so much, his hair would fall, and he'd have weird, it wouldn't even look like a mohawk. So I actually went in with a needle, the big needle that I could put the yarn in, the very fat needle, and I actually sewed through his hair. See, I can't separate these pieces. I actually put yarn in between these two hair pieces so that they would force to stay up. And I did that through all of them. I sewed the hair together to keep it from curling too much. And so now I think he looks super cute. The eyes I had to do separately. I actually did a black chain, and then I did a white blob. I just kind of crocheted just little bitty zigzags, and then I sewed the black on top of the white. So these are all separate, and then I used actual thread and a needle to sew on the eyes, similarly as I did the mouth. So the white honestly was really hard. I had to do 1 stitch, 2 stitches, 3 stitches, 5, 5, 3, 2, 1. And then I sewed on my black chain around it. The hardest part was getting it to be the same shape, and it just didn't come out right. If y'all have any suggestions on how I could do eyes better, please let me know. One thing I do want to ask of y'all is to not critique me. Don't be like, bruh, that's not how you crochet, you're doing it wrong. Because I do it the dorky way. I do it my way. I don't need people to tell me I'm doing it wrong, but I love advice. So go ahead and give me advice. I'm totally fine with that. So the last thing I want to bring up are his earrings. These were fun. I basically kind of crocheted it in his ear. Like I wrapped it through the ear, and it just hangs down on one string. I put a bead in there, and what happened was I made a knot so the bead wouldn't come off. But there was all those strings at the end. I have all those tassels, and I wanted the tassels to come off, so I cut it, and then it would unknot. So I melted a candle, a white one. Don't use red like I did the first time and make your string red. A white candle, I burnt it until it was all melty. I tied the knot, and right after I cut it, I dipped it in there immediately, and there was hot wet wax. And it wax dries quickly, so I was able to actually pinch it and mold the wax into the shape that I wanted, and I let it dry, and boom, I got King Kai earrings. Not King Kai, Supreme Kai. Oh, King Kai would be cute to make though. Wouldn't y'all want to see a King Kai doll? That'd be adorable with his big antennas. Oh, I would love to make a King Kai. So yeah, that's the best I can do with explaining how I made this. It would be way easier if you just watch me, but this took far too long. There were so many errors. I had to go back so many times. I redid the eyes. The eyes were actually sewn onto his face, and I had to go back and I cut every piece off. took almost 30 minutes taking the eyes off. So this time I made them separately and then just sewed on the outside. So if I wanted this to come off, it would be way easier. Oh, and just one more piece. His body, the torso I showed y'all earlier. This thing. Just like his head, I started here. Started with a 1-stitch pattern. And then I realized that would take forever to make this whole body with a 1-stitch pattern. So I actually started doing a 2-stitch pattern. I don't really know how to explain that without showing you. I just made it to where the crochet pattern I used would be wider, so I could cover more space versus just one little bitty bit. You can even see how it looks different, this whole section, to the rest of it. It's a lot more tight, a lot more small, and I used a different stitch to make it bigger. And I just made it wide until I had the width I wanted, and then just kept going. And then here, to make it small, I had to skip a stitch every time so it would pull it in. And then once I got down here, I cut the thread. I made a knot, I cut the thread. And what I do, because I have so many threads when I crochet, I can show you right now what I do actually. I take it, push it into a hole, and just keep going, and it pushes down. Next thing you know, you reshape it. You can't see it. Stringless! It's so beautiful. So yeah, that was very easy. You're actually lucky that I'm starting on the arms, because these arms are going to be very difficult. If there's a way I can edit this photo and show you a picture, I'm going to show it right
now. What I want you to notice are his shoulders. You see how they're big and poofy. I'm not really sure how I'm going to make them that big and poofy. His clothes, it comes out and then it comes in real tight, fitting to his arms. But you know, I'm just going to do my very best. I'm going to grab my needle and I'm just going to try and try again. If I mess up, I'll just undo it, do it again, and I'll only show you the finished, correct way to do his arms. So I'm real excited, and I can't wait to show you how I do his arms. I think it's going to be real fun. So come by next time to see Dork's Dolls and see how I do his arms, and hopefully we can finish up with Supreme Kai soon. I'll see y'all later. Peace.